Good evening, and welcome to today's cybersecurity mentoring group session, where we share, we learn, and we connect. Some of you that are joining us for the first time, cybersecurity mentoring group is a group where we invite professionals to come share so that everyone can learn from their experience. And if you are joining us for the first time, whether you are a cybersecurity wannabe or you are just starting in the field or you are experienced in the field, it's a community we are trying to build. Cybersecurity is one of those fields that is becoming a national need. And so we need to have enough professionals that can defend Africa and defend our respective country. So if you are joining us, you're in a good place. And today we'll have a very good conversation. First, we try to go through some preliminaries just to intimate you with some of the things that the session will cover. So in 2023, we carry out a research to identify the sought after cybersecurity skills, competencies, and certifications. So we looked at 4 countries and we're able to document. And some of you that are following me, you would have seen that on LinkedIn. We're able to document the top jobs. We did top 20, the top skills, competencies, and certifications that are required for the top 20 jobs. So it helps you as a security professional what employers are looking for, and you can then go prepare yourself for them. The second one is cyber researcher. These are people that I'm hoping would volunteer to take some studies and then share with the community. Currently have a few, someone that has dedicated his time to even do some research that we're going to be publishing in the coming weeks. Then we have cyber scribes. Cyber scribes are people that I think they can build listening skills and be able to document technical conversation in non-technical ways so that we can share. I have done so far the last 8 or so. So we're looking for someone that will be able to take, juggling, questioning, listening could be tough. And if I can't pick it, I have to listen to it after and then pick it. But if someone is on the call and is jotting, it helps. So if you are interested and you would like to build capacity in that regard, you can contact me. We have a channel, so people who miss the session can go there and go watch it. It's as displayed on your screen. And these are the people that we've invited so far. Now, we also try to do a recap of the last session. And last session we had Doyin Moyojo, and they treated a very interesting topic. This really isn't a very technical topic, but you need the soft part of the machine to be working effectively so that the machine can deliver. This actually is a soft part of cybersecurity where you're not sure of yourself in what you're doing, and it happens to every professional. But cybersecurity is a very, very is a highly skilled profession, and also is very demanding. So people fall into this position from time to time. So Doyin started a career in banking, and she moved from technical, she moved into governance, risk, and compliance. She began her journey just by registering for Cisco Cyber House, and she was able to get a scholarship. She currently works for the Deloitte UK as cybersecurity manager, and our job is to make sure that our clients build cyber resilience. We asked her exactly what is this imposter syndrome, and she said that it is some self-doubt. People doubt themselves. You've achieved a lot, but at some point you think, am I good enough? And it happens when sometimes you think you have put enough control in place to mitigate attack, and there's a breach. And you begin to doubt yourself because people will be asking, don't we have a cybersecurity manager in this organization? And that become some kind of reflection. But she said that this affects a lot of professionals. And so you're not alone. And she said that the causes of this syndrome could be your personality. So some people are perfectionists, so they can't afford to miss anything. Some, it could be gender stereotypes, and she actually gave an example of how you could be female, and that alone is it's embarrassing you because you think, will I be able to do it? And family dynamics, some families are high achievers, and suddenly you're doing your best, but it seems not to measure up, and said that could actually affect you. And then we asked her, how can they overcome that situation? It says strategies to overcome include practicing self-compassion, have compassion on yourself, acknowledge your achievement, the things that you have achieved, do an inventory for whatever it is. Go through your own LinkedIn profile and look at the recommendations that you have gotten thus far, and let that motivate you that these two, whatever feeling you have, would pass. But absolutely embrace continuous learning, because if you are feeling that something is not right, it's probably because you have seen some deficiency. Then go learn. And she shared with us some learning opportunities. As you can see on the screen, she told us, if you are trying to start or you're trying to increase your skill, go into Try Hack Me, check YouTube, Cybrary, Science Institute, and all of that. Focus on upskilling. That's one thing. In fact, she said that once you know, there's something about knowing and confidence. That's once you know, you will just get that, very confident in what you know. It is not confidentiality in cybersecurity though, but you be confident in what you know. And then so she also encouraged that mentorship is crucial. So we've created a cybersecurity mentoring group that anyone can join and get some help. Now today, I've, like I said earlier, on LinkedIn, I've invited my friend, and we were catching up earlier before everyone joined, and I've not seen him for a long time, so it was a good time to catch up and also to share from his experience. And I've invited today, so I'll leave his other name, Oguaghamba. I invited today Ike to come share with us, and I won't do much introduction. I will allow Ike to speak and we can hear him. Ike, welcome and happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Wally. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I'm quite excited to be here, to be honest. Like I said earlier, it's quite early here. It's about 6 a.m. In the morning and super, super cold. So I've got my cup of tea on the side,
Nice.
just to get me going. Hi everyone. My name is Ike, and I'm quite happy to join Wally today. I'm not going to go through the items we've got on screens, but I hope you can quickly go through that. Um, I currently look after the cybersecurity team at Westpac here in New Zealand, Line One Risk. Prior to joining Westpac New Zealand, I used to work for EY. So I worked for EY in Lagos, Nigeria, and also worked for EY here in Auckland, New Zealand. Um, I also did used to work at UBA, and that was where I met with Wale for the first time. Also worked at Unified Payments. Some of you would know Unified Payments somewhere in Victoria Land. And then worked with Union Bank, but also Royal Salt, where I did a bit of engineering practice based on my studies in school. Um, but my experience in cybersecurity, risk advisory, governance, and compliance has mostly been in financial services and consulting. Um, Outside of work, I enjoy playing FIFA on PlayStations. And it's quite cool for me, especially when I'm scoring goals. Um, and look, I know we're going to have a great session today, so I'm really looking forward to your engagement. Thanks,
Excellent.
Wally.
Thanks,
Mm.
Ike. First, so thank you for that introduction, at least, because I was trying to even pick your previous job before we met. I know, but thank you for mentioning unified payments, fintech, bank, yeah, and also your abandoned abandoned field, engineering. All right, so today we're trying to also go into the past, how you got yourself into cybersecurity. You studied engineering, chemical engineering, where they are drinking oil, and perhaps your plan was to take one of those oil company. But how did you find your way from chemical engineering and even working in the other company you mentioned, Royal?
Royal
Um,
Salt.
yeah. How did you
Yeah.
find your way into cybersecurity?
Hmm. Good question. To start with, as you know, I studied chemical engineering in uni, Futo precisely. Um, and I like to say that I got into technology in the first instance by chance because I didn't quite have a big plan or strategy at the time to get into tech, right? Especially with my background in chemical engineering. And as you know, growing up in Lagos, back in the day, we all wanted to work in mobile, um, Shell, um, and Chevron, Texaco, and all of that, which is power reasons why I ended up studying chemical engineering. But then after graduation from FUTO, I did obviously work in Royal Sod as a graduate engineer, trainee chemical engineer. I worked there for a few months, actually practicing chemical engineering. Um, but when I had a chance to join Union Bank, I actually just jumped on it. And again, to be honest, at that point, I think the driver was just making more money. Um, and it was actually quite a bit it wasn't as focused as you would expect on career choices and all. Um, but I think that became in my mind the turning point for me. Um, because after the Union Bank training school, I got posted to IT at Marina in the head office in Union Bank. Um, Obviously with my chemical engineering background, it wasn't particularly rosy because we had heaps of other people who joined at the time who had studied computer science, um, electrical and electronics engineering like yourself, Wale. So in a way that had a bit of correlation to tech, so it was easier for them to find teams and get onboarded quicker than myself who read chemical engineering. Because I actually did remember an AGM asking me he said in Pidgin, he said, Oga, you study chemical engineering, which you define for bank. Um, that question actually almost put me off because I thought, geez, this guy is clearly indicating that I shouldn't be here. Um, but on the flip side, that became a motivation for me because I needed to then bridge the gap between obviously being a chemical engineering graduate and then being in tech. Um, and I must highlight though that at the time I actually did work with really good people at Union Bank. I remember starting off with being a support person. So you know how you typically go around helping people fix their computer, helping people fix their email, Outlook, and all of that. Did that for a while and slowly transitioned into being a network and security administrator. But of course, doing that, managing network infrastructure as a whole does expose you a lot to not just the fundamentals of tech, but also security, because you start actually having deep-rooted conversations relating to security. But then that's how I slowly, obviously, transitioned into actual security. I remember my team then was called Enterprise Information Security at Union Bank. And of course, I'm paraphrasing this story to be honest, right? Because it wasn't particularly easy. There were ups and downs. On my part, I was obviously very determined to make the switch. But it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of late nights. It was a lot of um, connecting with people and actually trying to learn from them. And doing heaps of studies, especially when I had exams lined up, because I ended up sitting several exams or multiple exams just to close that gap. But if I reflect on my journey from being a chemical engineering graduate to then transitioning into tech and then obviously specializing in cybersecurity, I think the highlight for me has been the people. And sometimes we do take this for granted, which is why this this mentoring group is actually super important, especially for young people. I think having the right people support you is probably the most important thing, and for me certainly was probably my critical success factor at the time. So I had really good people I was working with at Indian Bank at the time. So people who were willing to show me what they were doing. So remember, I studied chemical engineering in school and not computer science or computer engineering. So most of the things I know, I learned them by doing them. So I had people who already had skin in the game, who were quite experienced at Union Bank, who were willing to show me the ropes, who were willing to teach me what they were doing and essentially bring me on board to the team. So for me, on reflection, I think that has been I guess the key call out for me and in Waller's time, the light bulb moment and I always try and pay that forward to be honest. Like when I see, young people trying to figure out what they do next, I'm committed to giving them 100% support because I used to be, in that phase where I wasn't quite clear what was next and I needed people to trust me, to believe in me, to give me the opportunities to learn and grow. So that's been my short story and how I'd made that move from looking after processing plants at Royal Salt into banking, and then transitioning from being a core support person to cybersecurity.
What a journey. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing. I didn't know I didn't know some part of the process, but I think
I
this session helps us to reflect and see all of the help that we got and how we got to where. And again, as you mentioned, particularly important that this group was established to help people who are in that phase and trying to navigate where to next. Now, to our topic. So why are businesses now getting, in quotes, concerned about cybersecurity? What exactly is happening that is getting businesses now really interested in cybersecurity?
Thanks, Wale. Again, another really good question. Look, as tech is changing, right, rapidly actually, constantly developing, it's super clear that the cyber threat landscape would also continuously evolve, right? Um, and we've got multiple data points out there to suggest that cyber threats and incidents remains a top risk for businesses globally, right? So in my mind, that provides sufficient reason for businesses to start thinking cybersecurity and considering cybersecurity risk. But in addition to that as well, um, some of the reasons that comes to mind for me as to why businesses would increasingly think about cybersecurity would be um, financial impacts of cyber attacks to businesses, for example. I mean, businesses operate to make money, right? So think about a cyber attack, for example, a ransomware attack that could lead to significant financial losses for organizations, right? Through service outages, downtime, or operational impact, as the case may be, loss of productivity, and potentially you paying the hacker to retrieve your data. Like that could be enormous amount of financial stress and burden to organizations. So for organizations that are forward looking, they probably want to be proactive as to how they manage that and making sure they've got the right capabilities and control in place. And in this case, obviously, it would be ensuring they've got like adequate BCP capabilities, backup, disaster recovery, um, plans and tests happening across their critical assets and infrastructure. So that in my mind is a key one. Um, there's obviously the bit around regulation as well, right? With the heightened regulatory changes and scrutiny, especially in financial services, which is really obviously we have spent a lot of time working over the past few years. Businesses, especially those that are heavily regulated, like banks, could potentially face fines for non-compliance, right? So non-compliance in this case could be with the data protection standards or regulations, especially if we're talking about customer impact here in terms of customer data and all. Here in New Zealand, for example, it's actually quite big. So regulatory concerns and considerations is top of mind for every entity that is registered as financial services. So be it banking, be it insurance, be it payments. So I think that is certainly another consideration or reason why businesses are beginning to obviously look into cybersecurity. um, I could also think of reputational damage to businesses. You talked about the data breach earlier, right? So in cases where we know um, there could be potential data breaches, which obviously can severely impact or damage an organization's reputation, but also result in a loss of customer trust, which at the moment is a crucial or critical differentiator for most businesses, especially in financial services, because people want to do business with organizations they can trust to keep their data, to respect and maintain their privacy, to make sure that there are no cases of unauthorized access to their portfolio or accounts and all of that. So reputational damage is certainly a big one as well for businesses. Um, and I could maybe lastly think of the increased frequency of cyber attacks, right? And the truth is, with the rise of generative AI as an example, we're going to see an increase in the frequency of cyber attacks, right? Because AI is essentially simplifying the concept and process of hacking. So consequently, organizations or businesses will will certainly have to deal with. So it's not a case of um, will I be hacked? It's when, would attackers target my organization? It's when, because no organization or business will be immune to cyber attacks. So just to recap that, I would think that the changing landscape, the fact that cyber threats and incidents remain top risks for businesses. And I specifically um, use the term for businesses and not tech, because it's important that we're not looking at cybersecurity threats as just a technology risk. Um, but then obviously the financial impact businesses operate to make money, the regulatory concerns, which could stem from fines due to non-compliance, reputational damage, obviously that's in line with customer trust being broken, and the fact that it's increasingly easy to actually perpetrate attacks. So for businesses, it's a case of when will I be targeted, not if I will be targeted at all.
Excellent. Thanks for breaking that down. You know, AI simplifying the concept of hacking hits me well
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they basically put on steroids the ability to beat system. Anyways, let me move on to the next topic. So you've been able to establish the reasons businesses are now concerned about cyber security. Now, what does this mean for cyber security professionals?
hmm, hmm. That's a good question. Look, I'll answer that in two folds, right? So I'll answer that in the context of what it means for businesses in terms of expectation, but also what it means for cybersecurity professionals. I'll be really quick, Wally, because I know we're pretty much encroaching on time as well. Now, for businesses, I do think what this means is that businesses needs to start reconsidering their investment in cybersecurity, right? So businesses need to obviously start being forward thinking around hiring really talented people, right? Enhancing their cybersecurity capabilities and tools, and making sure they're establishing adequate processes to protect customer data and organizational assets. It also means businesses needs to start strengthening cybersecurity risk management, and this is what I touched on earlier. So again, being forward thinking, being proactive. So you're not wishing to get breached before you actually embed capabilities, processes to prevent that from happening, right? You're not waiting to get breached before you start considering conducting proper risk assessment and working out mitigation actions on how you manage risk and continuously monitor them. Um, but also in ensuring that people have been trained, people have been empowered, because in the end, right, so people ideally would be your first line of defense against cyber threats, because that does certainly help reduce the likelihood um, of things going wrong, right? The likelihood of human error, the likelihood of non-compliance, and actually just really helping you improve your overall culture from a security perspective. But coming back to your question, and I thought I was going to touch on business, so it helps me line up easily into my commentaries for cybersecurity professionals. I think for cybersecurity professionals, this means one thing, right? And that thing is more job opportunities, um, more job opportunities and career pathways, if you like to say. And the reason I say this is there is increasing demand, like increasing demand of cybersecurity is globally, not just in Nigeria or here in New Zealand, in the US and in the UK. Um, with businesses, pivoting and I guess reassessing the importance of cybersecurity to their operation and how they are able to meet their overall objective as a business, it just does mean that there's going to be a lot more opportunities and career for people. And in our case, obviously, it means people are actually acquiring their skills in Nigeria and they can jack by if you want to say that in the Nigerian parlance and work anywhere in the world, like I'm currently doing today and yourself, Wale, because I know you're currently based in the UK. Um, but in saying that, that also means that cybersecurity professionals would have to face or deal with um, the pressure of continuous learning and adaptation. And I think this is really important, right? The cybersecurity landscape is constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. There are new things happening here and there. There's artificial intelligence, there is machine learning, there's cloud, there is big security components in all of these emerging technologies. So for cybersecurity professionals, for you to actually help businesses um, protect customer data and critical assets, like you need to stay on top of things. Like you need to be across what's happening in the industry. You need to be across the emerging threats and risk. You need to be constantly acquiring skills. Now, I talked about cybersecurity being in demand and the fact that there's going to be more job opportunities and more career pathways for cybersecurity professionals. But but the requirement for you to be in demand is actually continuous learning and adaptation. And that's really important because I've seen people who are not that flexible, having that sort of growth mindset to constantly learn and evolve. But I'm saying while there will be way more opportunities for cybersecurity professionals in the future, the criteria for you to be in demand is for you to actually be really skilled, for you to be able to adapt and learn new skills, pick up new skills on the way. And that's how you would be in demand. So, and I think that's really important for young people. So it's not about the title, like your cybersecurity professional or your cybersecurity specialist. It's actually what you can do, what sort of specialized skills you do have, what you can offer, what values you bring to the table, what would be your contribution in the field of cybersecurity. And this is really important, especially obviously when you work overseas, because it's less about your qualifications, but more about what you can do, and the contributions you can actually offer, in the context of a team or even as an individual contributor. So I think that's really important. So more opportunities, more career pathways for sure. But in saying that, the price you have to pay is continuously learning and adapting to change.
Thank you. I picked that ability to adapt, to change, and new skills. New skills is a currency for your relevance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In fact, Wally,
new
I
skill.
would like to add though that, and I did a quick research on this a couple of weeks ago. I do think that, especially with the evolution of tech and AI, in the workplace of the future, adaptability would be a critical skill for anyone to be successful, to be honest, right? Because data is showing that 10, 15, 20 years from now or from today, there'll be less focus on experience, but a lot more focus on your ability to pick up new skills, your ability to adapt to change, your ability to learn new things. So for young people, especially in cybersecurity and tech, I think this is an enormous opportunity, right? Because you can actually start doing that today, right? Um, and it's funny though, I've seen people, for example, who say they don't want to use AI because AI makes them lazy. And that's gonna sound funny, but it's actually true. And then I go, well, but is that not the idea? Like you're meant to use AI to be a lot more efficient, to be a lot more productive. But then we're saying, oh no, or these guys are saying, oh no, I don't want to use AI because AI don't make me think. So that was quite fascinating, even having that conversation. So I thought adaptability, uh, is really crucial, and for young people, the moment you're able to make that mindset shift and understand that you need to constantly keep going, and learning new things and being comfortable with change, you're just setting yourself up for success on that front.
Excellent. Thank you for adding that adaptability requirement. Now, so you've been able to establish that businesses are focusing on cyber. Also, you'll be able to let professionals know that um, they are needed and there are more opportunities. So there's something in need for professionals. But some on the call or experienced professional will say that they don't listen to us. We sometimes tell them that this is going to happen. We develop reports, we send them this vulnerability, we send them all this information. They don't listen. What exactly do you think is a problem?
Yeah, I'm smiling when you're reading that, Wally, because I've experienced that firsthand, from back in the day. But look, I think there are several reasons why businesses might not take cybersecurity professionals seriously, um, or ignore their recommendations, as you did say. But I'll touch on a few that comes to mind for me, um, from a business perspective, and then obviously from a cybersecurity and professional perspective as well. Now, from a business perspective, I do think that the lack of understanding and awareness on the part of the business and decision makers is certainly one of the reasons why some businesses relegate cybersecurity. And this is really, really important in financial services. And that's why you see regulators insisting that they need one or two people with solid technology and cybersecurity background in the board, right? That's all intentional because it's common knowledge, and this, I'm not sure how this is set up in Nigeria, but globally you'd find that most execs or most board, most team of execs or board running like really big businesses want to make sure that there are people who actually does have that understanding and balanced perspective of the business in relation to cybersecurity, because that's how they're actually able to provide leadership and the sort of support and direction that then embeds cybersecurity within the business. So if that's lacking on the side of the business in terms of that awareness with business leaders and decision makers, it just means that cybersecurity would never be taken seriously. And that just easily in my mind lines up to the disconnect between tech in the context of cybersecurity, and the business, right? And this often leads to cybersecurity not being perceived as a critical business risk because there's actually no meeting point for cybersecurity and the business, right? And obviously this poses significant challenge to the business, right? Because without a shift in mindset at the top, so at the business leaders and decision makers, without a shift in perspective and culture amongst them, well, the cybersecurity professional will be fighting an uphill battle to get his recommendations actually endorsed and supported. Again, from a business perspective, cost is obviously a big thing here. And the reason I say this is, as we know, cybersecurity is not only complex, but it's also expensive. So, for you to actually embed cybersecurity within your business, we're talking about significant investment required, right? So, like I said earlier, businesses operate to make money, right? So if you need to convince decision makers, especially those that are not inclined to tech, as to why they should spend so much money in cybersecurity. Now, how do you persuade them, right? Especially when the business, for example, has not experienced any any data breach. There hasn't been any cyber breach at all. And then you're trying to get them to allocate substantial funds to enhance the cybersecurity capabilities or implement your recommendations. It becomes an uphill battle because they're going, well, maybe you're trying to oversell this to us, right? We've not had any breach anyway, so why do we have to spend millions of dollars in trying to look good from a cybersecurity perspective? So that certainly is one from a business lens. I think the last thing that comes to mind for me from a business perspective is that, and I know this very well because I've been in GRC for a while. Most businesses just want to do the minimum possible to fulfill their obligations, right? And I like to call it the minimum viable security capability. So rather than being proactive in terms of how they manage risk, they're actually wanting to do the least possible and waiting for when there is a real problem, like when there is a real attack or there is a real incident or case of data leak, for them to then prioritize cybersecurity. Now, this happens all the time. It's obviously not a way to go, but because of obviously compliance and relevant obligations that does apply to businesses. Banks, for example, they're having to spend so much. So I've heard people say, you know what, just do the minimum possible, right? If the minimum possible is good enough to get us across the line, then we don't need to spend a lot of money trying to embed or improve our capabilities from a cybersecurity standpoint. Then quickly moving on to how, in my mind, this relates to cybersecurity professionals. I think we can do better as cybersecurity professionals, right? Especially in terms of communication. So I think poor communication um, or communication gap from cybersecurity professionals can be a significant issue in relation to why we're not able to sell our recommendations to the board or senior execs or to organizations, right? When when cybersecurity professionals fail to clearly, right, and consistently convey the importance of their recommendations, without using, say, technical jargons or in a way that does resonate with the business, then their recommendation is likely going to be ignored. And I've seen this all the times where cybersecurity professionals write reports to the board and execs as though they're writing to an engineer, right? That is a problem. So generally speaking, unclear communication increases, in my mind, does increase the risk of misunderstanding, right, regarding the importance and urgency of cybersecurity recommendations. And this is why our reports just get dumped. No one looks at it. Um, and I guess lastly for me would be the lack of trust and credibility within the business, right? So when a cybersecurity lacks that credibility and trust within the business, it does undermine everything you do. It does undermine your ability to influence the board, your ability to influence senior stakeholders as a cybersecurity professional, right? Um, and the truth is, if the businesses don't trust you as a cybersecurity professional, they will resist your recommendations. And that can be quite frustrating, as you can tell, just from having to deal with the business. So again, I'll quickly recap for cybersecurity professionals what we could do differently. I think our communication can be better, our reporting can be better, and that's why most cybersecurity teams would have dedicated cybersecurity governance people. So people who would typically serve as a bridge between technology or between cyber and the business. So people who understand the business language, but then they also do understand tech, and then they're able to write and communicate cybersecurity recommendations in business terms and in very clear terms. But most importantly, also also building the relevant credibility and trust with the business so you can actually sell your recommendations to them and make them see need and how that ties back to the overall corporate or business goals and objectives.
Wow.
I'll stop there, Wale. I'll stop there.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm just
I'm
you
beginning
know,
to think we need more than 1 hour, to be honest, because I was looking at the time. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
just
yeah. It's there's a lot to unpack because when you mentioned about the credibility aspect, so the cybersecurity professional has work to do then. He needs to build trust with the business before his reports
absolutely,
can be
absolutely,
considered. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And also there are reports, reports sometimes, it's usually when I see consultants, I used to admire their reports. the way they, you know, package the reports. When you see the report, you know that
Yeah. Yeah.
this design. So I remember one
And
time I
mm,
we got one of the consultants to help us with enterprise risk, and up till maybe 3 or 4 years after, one of the senior leader in the organization, the only thing he remembered was mentioning was the colorful presentation. He was saying that I want you to send me that colorful presentation. So the thing connected,
I know, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And I know this from my days at EY. We make really fancy reports. But to be honest, beyond the optics of the report,
Mm,
it's also the content and how it's written.
yeah.
And report writing is a skill. And I must admit, like technically people like us, people that has got a sort of background we where we've come from, we need to learn that. Like we don't
Mm,
that doesn't come to us. We're not lawyers, right? Like lawyers can write and all of that. But for us, we need to learn that. And I think that's what GRC obviously exposes you to. You need to get really good at writing reports. You need to get really good at tailoring your reports to audience, right? So
mm,
when I write, for example, an engineer, like I don't copy and paste the same context when I write to the board or to the executive committee because the audience is different, right? So the level of detail you share with them is obviously different. And so being able to target and tailor your reporting and communication becomes a really vital skill for cybersecurity professionals.
excellent. Now let's speak to so we have a lot of people based on what you've said. You've said that there's more opportunity for the field.
Mm,
And so today, a lot of people want to become cybersecurity professional. Again, it looks very good. I've heard that it pays a lot of money, and I've heard quite a number of things that is motivating people for cybersecurity. Now, what, in your opinion, is what how do I put it now? Professionals that want to come into cybersecurity, they are probably handling or doing something right now, but they've
mm.
seen the way the world is going and they want to navigate their path into cybersecurity. Do you have words for those people?
Um, I think firstly though, for people like that, and I hope they're listening to me at the moment. I do think that being on this session, like this conversation we're having now, Wale, and obviously we've got quite a few people in attendance, it is a fantastic way to start, right? Which is why when I saw like you putting this together, I thought it was brilliant, it was perfect, especially in the context of who we are and Africans. So that level of engagement is a really good way to get things going. Um, but in addition to that, it's also connecting with professionals in the field, right? And building a network. And I say this because I know it works. Like building a network of like really good people. Well, not like for me, obviously, I'm quite selective in terms of my network, but networking with the right people um, can open multiple doors of opportunities and mentorship for you, which is what Wale is obviously doing. So well done, Wale. So I think that's really important. And you could also obviously consider joining cybersecurity communities. In addition to this, communities like ISACA and ISC2, is that what they call it? The CISSP one, ISC2. So I think that does help. Um, the other thing I can think of is seeking opportunities, like real opportunities to gain hands-on experience, right? And that could be through internships, that could be you volunteering. Um, Sometimes that could be making a career change, taking entry-level roles or graduate roles, just to build the hands-on experience and practical skills, which in my mind is a very solid foundation. And I use myself as an example. Like I didn't study computer science in school, as you know, but the fact that I had the opportunity to work in Union Bank and actually do things, especially in tech, that gave me the foundational knowledge to actually making that switch and pivot into cybersecurity, right? So I think that I couldn't overemphasize. Um, we've touched on this earlier, but it's also commitment to learning. Like you need to stay committed to learning. And there are many or multiple online courses there in cybersecurity. While you are the custodian of cybersecurity courses and materials, so so you can share heaps, right? Um, but I do think being committed to learning, like loving to learn, like you need to love to learn as cybersecurity professionals. You need to be open to picking up new skills and engaging in areas you're not comfortable with. And to be honest, I find that you learn more when you're doing things that you're not very comfortable with. And this is not just with cybersecurity, but just broadly speaking from a career perspective. Um, and then lastly, I would say just explore, right? Cybersecurity is a very broad field. So as you learn, you wanna explore the various aspects of cybersecurity. Like I back in the day did heaps on networks and applications, on identity and access management, especially with Active Directory back in the day. There's also penetration testing. There's what I do now, which is governance, risk, and compliance. So just explore as you learn, and then when you do that, you're able to identify an area that does interest you, an area that you've got a lot more passion about, and then that becomes where you want to specialize, right? Because there's nothing as good as doing what you love, because it's easier, it comes to you naturally. Um, so I do think for people looking to make that sort of change, um, to recap again, that level of engagement, your networking, looking for opportunities to actually gain hands-on experience, being committed to learning. And for me, I always start with growth mindset. So if you look at my profile on LinkedIn, you would notice I've got that all stocked in there because that's a big one for me. Because that does obviously apply to every sphere of life and not just cybersecurity. But also picking a niche area for yourself, because you can't, and I think that there's a risk of that happening. You can't be an SME across all the broad areas of cybersecurity. So you need to pick an area you're very, very comfortable with. Um, and I think just lastly, and this one just came to mind for me because my brother did this 2 years ago. Like for people who are new or looking forward to building a career in cybersecurity, foundational knowledge is really important. And I think that there are a few certifications out there, um, or courses out there that can actually help you with that foundational knowledge. So even if you choose not to write exams, but just do a great amount of studying. And I can think of CompTIA Security Plus as an example, because I've seen the updated body of knowledge for CompTIA Security Plus from 2 years ago. And I do think that it covers all the foundational areas that you probably want to be across from a cybersecurity perspective. So if you haven't seen that or haven't had a look at that, I would encourage you to have a look, um, and maybe get things going from that front while you explore and make a determination on where you would want to specialize as a cybersecurity professional.
Thank you very much, Ike. As you rightly said, the time looks insufficient. But so as we're talking, I discovered that your last point was certification, and you didn't really hit well on it. And I've seen a lot of people chase certification. What do you think, especially for people that are trying to get into the field?
Yeah, this is a very tricky question though. So, so I'll try and answer from my perspective. So, and while you know this, right? I did a lot of certifications back in the day. Heaps of them. It's not public knowledge now, but I know I've sat at least close to 20 exams, like from Microsoft to a bunch of other ones and all of that, but mostly Microsoft, because then Union Bank used to be a Microsoft shop, so we had heaps of Microsoft solution and tools and all of that. Then obviously the ISACA and ISC too. So when I started, certifications actually did help me, right? I mean, and you know this, I mean, most people in the call probably wouldn't be aware, but I did move from EY in Nigeria to EY here in Auckland. Like essentially, I got hired from Nigeria into my role here, and I do think that the fact that at the time I was going through that process, right? I did have CISSP, I'd written and passed CISM, I did have CISA. I think that did help in my move. And the reason I say this was when I joined the team, I realized that I was one of the most certified people in the team. And then when we obviously, you know how we normally sort for jobs and we put our profile and we send it to clients, and then they say, oh, I want you or I want the other competitors. Like my profile was always top of the list, and then my certifications were all listed. So I just from a business development standpoint, that obviously did help our brand and my team. Um, but personally, I do think that that was important for me at the time, and obviously, getting the opportunity to make that migration or transition into EY Auckland. Now, so that's the bit around, my belief that certifications are really important because that's how you demonstrate competence, especially for people like us. Um, but on a switch or on the other side of the coin, I also do think that there has to be a balance. We need to find the right balance. And the reason I say this is I've seen people who have so much certifications, but then when I engage with them, I feel like they lack depth. Like they actually they actually they're actually not competent, just to be brutally honest, right? So, and then I started questioning the concept of certifications. So that made me think that maybe the way we acquired our certifications, Wale, is probably not the way people now acquire their certifications. I don't know. I'm just making this up. And I mean the other, and you know this, right? I never had like formal classes for my certifications. I just did self-study, bought videos, bought books, read them over a few months, and sat the exams. So I started really challenging that. And actually, when I do interview people, I dig a bit more into that, especially when people have heaps of certifications. Um, and then culturally here in New Zealand, for example, I realized that they don't pay so much interest in certifications, especially for experienced hires, right? It is good. It is sometimes a prerequisite for roles, but then when you're interviewed, you're actually being drilled on the actual thing you'll be doing and less about, the certifications you do have. So I think for me, the best way to respond to that, while it would be certifications are great, you're actually able to use that to tell your story and also demonstrate that you've done quite a lot and obviously demonstrate competence. But I'm saying when you do have certifications, make sure you actually across depth in that area you're certified in. Because the last place you want to be is go, you've got CISSP, you've got CISM, you've got all of these certifications, for example, but then you can have meaningful conversations in those areas, um, that then also supports the fact that you've got heaps of experience and you've had the time to sit and pass certification exams. So hopefully that
Excellent.
answers your question, Wale.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. So
Okay.
I think that we just have about 5 minutes or so to
Hmm.
close. And the question I want to ask is really about resources for cybersecurity professionals. Yeah, indeed, you are right that I have access to quite a number of those things. But are there, from your perspective or from your experience, are there sources where people can go to get more information?
Hmm.
And then if you can help us with that, maybe within 2 minutes, we can spend the rest about 3 minutes for anybody that has question. If you have question, you can just type it in the chat. I'll read it out. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Wally. Look, again, I'll default to you. Like, I think you probably have the most resources than anyone on this call, on that one. But look, the truth is today it's actually way easy to find resources on any subject, right? Including cybersecurity. We've got heaps of online courses out there, Udemy, Coursera. You did mention a few as well. And we've got heaps of cybersecurity podcasts and video you can find on YouTube, like heaps of practice labs for those of you that are interested in pen testing. So resources are just literally everywhere. All you need is access to the internet, right? Access to the internet. And then you're sorted. So I can't think of any other one off the top of my head now, other than that, Wally. But like I dude said earlier, you've got heaps, and I'm happy to defer to you on that one because I'm sure you've got some that I haven't seen, um,
No worries, no
as a
worries,
resource.
no worries. So I have two questions, right? I have
Yeah.
one question. Someone who has CH and is saying that he rarely comes across open positions specifically for CH role. Is wondering why I have this certification, but there's no, even for him to secure an internship as a CEH. We couldn't find. Any thoughts?
That's an interesting one. The CEH, that's the Certified Ethical
Ethical
Hacking
hacker, yeah.
certification, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hmm. So where is it looking though? Like, is this in the Nigerian
Yeah, it's in a
job
Nigerian
market or
context. I think it's the Nigerian job market. Yeah.
Nigerian? Okay. Because I think
Well, I
there are
know
quite,
I know the person, so you can engage me in our community.
yeah.
Yeah, I can engage you
Yeah,
in our
okay. So
community.
no,
Yeah.
we can pick that up. Like that's a bit strange. And look, I think it's not just with that certification. I think sometimes it happens, right? Where it feels like you're not finding anything in relation to what you have.
Mm,
Um, but that shouldn't deter whoever that is, to be honest, right? And in some cases, what you end up starting with might not be exactly the skill set you have. So, for example, you've probably done a lot of training around ethical hacking. It doesn't necessarily mean that for you to get into cybersecurity, it has to be an ethical hacking role. It could be something else. But that doesn't mean the certification and skill sets you've acquired off the back of your CEH is useless. No, it's not. But I'd like to maybe explore that more. I do think that
yeah.
here in New Zealand, for example, that I've seen roles where they would go, preferably someone that's got CEH and pen testing background and skill set. But most
Mm,
of those roles are usually for in consulting roles. So, for
yeah.
example, you wouldn't find banks and other sectors within the industry advertised specifically for that, but for organizations that offer cybersecurity services, right? They want people with those sort of specialized skills
You're
and
right.
certifications.
You're
Hmm.
right. Thanks. I have another question. I'm looking at time. In 1 or 2 minutes, we'll be done. This question is, aside taking courses, how else do you keep abreast? How else do you keep yourself abreast with the current happenings in cybersecurity? Maybe in 1 minute, if you
Yeah,
have
look,
any thoughts around that.
I think I've touched on this earlier. Here, for example, I'm a member of ISACA, member of IC2. I'm subscribed to their monthly bulletins. So that obviously does mean that I get their monthly bulletins and
Mm,
updates on emerging threats and the overall threat landscape. So that does help. But in saying that, we've got multiple networking opportunities here where people literally tell you about what's happening, what's changing. And the big thing for us at the moment in this part of the world is obviously AI security, AI governance. And that has been, in my mind, super helpful with keeping me up to date with trends, um, and all the constantly changing,
okay.
you could call them vibes, just from a cyber and tech lines.
Thanks. Again, I'm looking at time, but I have
Yeah.
another question.
Oh
How
no,
would you
I'm happy to
suggest?
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how would
yeah.
you suggest for someone trying to get a role, a GRC role? How would you suggest for the person to propose value to potential industry so that they can get hired?
I like that question, Wale. Um, but because you've asked me that question, you know, I obviously didn't start out being in GRC. I started out being very hands-on. I think I made a switch to the soft switch to GRC when I transitioned to EY because at EY, obviously, at the time we weren't delivering a lot of technical stuff. It was more consulting and all. So, um, I think it depends on where you are in your journey. So and I'll tell you about myself, for example. When I switched into GRC, I knew very little about governance, risk, and compliance because I was coming from a hands-on technical role. But I was obviously determined to learn. What I found really helpful in my switch was bringing my hands-on experience to bear in GRC. Because what I
Mm,
quickly noticed that a lot of people in GRC had very limited experience and background knowledge of actual delivery or operations from a cybersecurity standpoint. So for me, that became my value proposition. So I was obviously doing all the governance and risk stuff, but I was bringing that additional layer on technical security concepts to GRC, um, and that became a differentiator for me. So again, I'm happy to engage this person offline, but I don't know where you are in your journey, what you're doing today, the sort of skill set you have or the background you do have. But I do believe that there are multiple value propositions you could sell to get introduced or to get into governance, risk, and compliance, which is fun, by the way. Not for everyone, because for some people they go, oh, it becomes really boring over a period of time. But I do think that I do think that there are multiple value propositions you can bring to the table to get into GRC. And then lastly, obviously, having certifications comes back to our earlier conversation. Having certifications like CISA, CRISC, CISSP actually does help. Because I do know that in GRC, actually most GRC roles would typically ask you for the basics around CISA and CRISC, because that's a lot more focused on risk and governance.
Yes. Last question, maybe. Do
Yeah.
I chatted, but I just maybe you may have some thoughts around someone has masters in cybersecurity. Do I need certification?
Hmm. Um, that's a good one. So I think the answer is yes. If I was going to pick an opinion or pick a side on that one and not sit on the fence, right? Look, I've got a BSc in chemical engineering. I've also got an MBA in business administration, but I've got heaps of certifications. So like I see no reason why you couldn't at least consider sitting any of the ISCA or IC2 certifications, CISSP or CRISC in if you would. I haven't seen cybersecurity roles, especially in the industry, that specifically asks for MSc in cybersecurity. I think there will be very few or rare. However, you would see heaps of cybersecurity roles that is wanting you to have a CISA, a CISSP, a CRISC, or a CISM. So I think just to position yourself better, in addition to your second degree in cybersecurity, for example, you could think of getting one or two cybersecurity certifications to support that as well. And I think that obviously in the end you're not going to lose anyway. It just positions you better for future opportunities.
Whoa, man, it's just like this conversation, this chat shouldn't end, man. So much to share.
Yeah,
Anyways, Ike, I want to thank you so especially for creating time. I know it's quite early.
yeah. I'll be shooting back to bed now, by the way, once this ends.
Thank you so much for spending time, and I'm happy that you were able to at least help people and provide some direction. Just 1 minute will be done, all right? The other so the other thing I would just like to share on the call is around the so we have a YouTube channel. You can go and check so this video by tomorrow or Tuesday will be uploaded with a summary. So if you are a good scribe, we need you to be able to write. I have written some things. By next week or so, we'll be sharing some of the research that someone has done. So people that are looking for podcasts, they follow. We will share on the page and in our community and WhatsApp group. We will share that. So I did update this one. The next edition is on the 5th of October. We'll be having our next edition. We've finalized the topic. It's just a matter of sharing out um, the ads for people. So just be on the lookout and join the community, contribute, and hopefully we'll connect and also we share jobs. If we find any, we share also in the community. And thank you for creating this time. I'm so grateful for your time and wishing you all the best and back to sleep.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Wale, and thanks everyone who has joined us today. And I've seen a few messages on chat, for example. Yes, I will go into LinkedIn and connect or accept all your requests. Thanks everyone, and thank you so much, Wale.
All right. Thank you. God bless you.
All right.
Bye.